Welcome to the deep dive. For this deep dive, we're looking at a big study from Nature Medicine.
That's right. And as always, we're doing this under the watchful eye of Dr. Caroli, our consulting cardiologist. This study, it really dug into long-term eating habits.
Long-term is key here. They use data from the Nurses' Health Study and the Health Professionals' Follow-Up Study. We're talking decades, right? Like 1986 all the way to 2016.
Yeah, an incredible amount of data. They wanted to see how sticking to certain dietary patterns over years, decades even, and also how much ultra-processed food people ate, how that all connects to what they called healthy aging.
Okay, so we should probably define that term, healthy aging, as they used it. It wasn't just about lifespan.
No, not just living long. It was specifically about hitting at least 70 years old without getting diagnosed with any of 11 major chronic diseases.
11. Wow. What was on that list?
Well, there was cancer, though. They smartly excluded non-melanoma skin cancers, diabetes, heart attacks, coronary artery disease, heart failure, stroke, kidney failure.
Okay, the big ones.
Right. Plus COPA, Parkinson's, MS, and ALS. So pretty comprehensive on the disease front.
Very. But was that it? Just avoiding disease?
No, and this is important. They also factored in cognitive function, using a questionnaire on subjective decline plus physical function from a standard survey, and mental health, too, using a depression scale for older adults.
Ah, so it's really a picture of overall well-being into older age, not just surviving, but thriving.
Exactly. Thriving is a good way to put it.
Okay, so they crunched all this data, decades of it. What popped out? What are the big insights for us?
Well, the clearest message really was that long-term commitment to any of the 8 healthy dietary patterns they looked at that was linked quite strongly with better odds of achieving this healthy aging.
Any of them. That's encouraging. Were some, like, more effective than others?
Yes, there was definitely a range. When they compared the people who stuck closest to these diets versus those who followed them the least, well, the odds of healthy aging went up.
How much?
It ranged from about a 45% increased chance with the healthful plant-based diet, all the way up to an 86% increase with something called the Alternative Healthy Eating Index, the AHEI.
86%.
Yeah.
That's huge. The AHEI really stands out there.
It does, almost double the odds in that comparison.
What about if people lived even longer? Did they look at, say, healthy aging to 75?
They did, yeah. And interestingly, when they pushed that threshold up to 75, the AHEI looked even stronger.
Really? How much stronger?
Let me check the numbers. Right, the odds ratio was 2.24. So people with the highest AHEI scores had more than double, like 124% higher odds of healthy aging to 75 compared to those with the lowest scores.
Wow. So for the really long haul, that AHEI seems particularly potent. What's in that one? What makes it tick?
The AHEI is kind of an overall quality score. It looks at, I think, 11 different food groups and nutrients. You get more points for good stuff like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, legumes, unsaturated fats.
The usual suspects.
Pretty much. And you get fewer points. There are sort of negative points for things like sugary drinks, red and processed meats, trans fats, and sodium. It's about the balance, you know?
Right, the overall pattern. Makes sense. Did they also pull out specific foods or nutrients that seemed consistently linked to aging well across the board?
Yes, and it really reinforces that general healthy eating advice. Higher intakes of fruits, veggies, whole grains, those good unsaturated fats, nuts, legumes, even low-fat dairy, all linked to better odds.
And the flip side?
The flip side, too. More trans fats, sodium, sugary drinks, red or processed meats. Those were linked to lower odds of healthy aging. No big surprises there, perhaps, but strong confirmation.
Yeah, it really hammers home that basic advice.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned 8 patterns earlier. That sounds like a lot to juggle. Can we quickly touch on what some of the others were?
Sure. So besides the AHEI, there was the AMED Alternative Mediterranean Index. Think olive oil, fish, nuts, lots of plants. Pretty classic Mediterranean.
Okay.
Then DHH dietary approaches to stop hypertension. That one's big on lowering sodium, often recommended for blood pressure.
Right.
The MIND diet, that's like a hybrid of Mediterranean and DHH, but with a special emphasis on things like berries, aiming for brain health benefits.
Interesting. Berries for the brain.
Yeah. Then the HPDI, Healthful Plant-Based Diet Index. That one really focuses on getting nutrients from plants over animals. And the PHDI, the Planetary Health Diet, which tries to balance human health with environmental sustainability.
Okay. Quite diverse. And the last 2?
The last 2 were a bit different. EDP and EDIH. They measure how inflammatory or insulin-promoting a diet might be. But here, they used reverse scores, because higher scores on those usually mean a less healthy pattern, so a higher reverse score was better.
Got it. So lots of angles on healthy eating, But the AHEI came out strongest overall for that age 70 healthy aging definition. What about ultra-processed foods, UPFs? They looked at that separately, didn't they?
They did, and this is a really stark finding, I think. Higher consumption of UPFs was associated with 32% lower odds of healthy aging.
32% lower. Wow. That really underscores that it's not just what you do eat, but what you don't eat or limit.
Absolutely. It's a significant hit to your chances, it seems.
So, Tom, bringing this all together, what's the big picture message we should take away from this?
Well, I think the main message is pretty straightforward. Sticking consistently to a healthy dietary pattern, especially starting around midlife, seems to significantly up your chances of aging well. And well means across the board less disease, better cognition, better physical function, better mental health.
Right. It's the consistency over the long term that seems critical. And you said the AHEI was maybe strongest overall, but did different patterns maybe link more strongly to specific parts of healthy aging?
That's a good point. Yes, there were some nuances, like the PHDI, the planetary health one, seemed to have a slightly stronger link specifically to cognitive health and just surviving to 70 without major issues.
Okay.
The AHEI was particularly strong for physical and mental health aspects, and that reversed EDIH, the low insulin index one, showed the strongest link to just being free of those chronic diseases.
Interesting. So different flavors of benefit, maybe?
Kind of, but the underlying theme across all the beneficial patterns was pretty consistent. Diets rich in plant foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, legumes with healthy fats, and maybe moderate amounts of healthy animal foods. That seems to be the common thread.
And the common warning is, watch the ultra-processed stuff.
Definitely. That came through loud and clear. Now, it's a strong study perspective, huge numbers, long follow-up, repeated diet checks. Really solid.
But there are always limitations, right?
Of course. We should keep in mind some data relied on self-reports, like for cognitive and physical function. And the study group was health professionals, mostly white, relatively educated. So we always have to ask how perfectly these findings apply to absolutely everyone.
Good points. Important context. But overall, the message about long-term dietary patterns feels pretty powerful.
It really does.
So maybe a final thought for people listening. Perhaps consider how these findings resonate. It's less about short-term fixes, isn't it?
Yeah.
And more about building sustainable habits. What small changes towards more plant-rich foods, healthy fats, and fewer highly processed items could someone explore? It seems like those choices could really add up over time for health and well-being as we age.
That's a great way to frame it. Small, sustainable steps based on these solid principles. That seems like a very worthwhile investment in future health.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out on YouTube, too.